constructor në portfolio tjetër të gjë. Që është përdry njëre për aktivat centrale nga Europa Juglindore nga riva World International Architect. Kështu që pas gjatë shumë se dhe duhet mas ligjeratës më këthy për Istanbul. Më kësha lutë për një aplauz për zotin Tabanlioglu.
Hello. I will show you today different types of projects in different scales, different functions. But I will start with a project which is very important these days for Turkey and also for the rest of Turkey. As you know, we had, I think it started 1 month ago, a big demonstrations in Gezi Park. And part of Gezi Park, the Taksim Square, there is a building which was designed on the 60s from my father, who was also an architect. And this building is the Atatürk Cultural Center. Since 3 years it's closed, but it was the opera and ballet house for many years for Turkey and for Istanbul. I think most of you know Istanbul. This is Istanbul is, as you know, on 7 hills, and when you this is one of the hills, and it's the main square. And many years ago, Henry Prost, the French city planner, came to our city and make a master plan for this area. The main idea was to make, as you can see on the green plot, a big park in the city, because Istanbul is very topographical. So the top was the beginning of Taksim Square and then ending the Dolmabahce Stadium, which will also will be brought down now, and they will make it new. But this part was in the main heart of the new city. Then in year that was in the, let's say, 60s. And at this time, on the Taksim Square, you can see this is the Taksim Square this year. This is 1946. There was an old building for governmental building at that place. And because he was a French architect, he invited Auguste Perret to make opera and ballet house. At this time, we have to imagine in Europe it was many projects like this, similar like this. It was just an opera and ballet house, and it was that should be a building for the Istanbul municipality. And then they started to make this building, and then but it stopped in a row construction, and that was already in the years of the 60s. 60s. That was the year after the Second World War, when many German, Austrian and Swiss architects came to teach in Turkish universities like Clemens Holzmeister, Bonatz, Taut came to our country. And my father is a student in technical university, was one of the students from them. And then he went then to Germany, to Hanover, and then to Zurich. Make a doctor work about theaters and opera houses. That's, I guess, because I don't know exactly, they gave him the job to make a new, let's say, cultural center with the existing structure. He said, this is in his memoirs, an opera and ballet house in a place like this should be in a bigger sense with other secondary spaces like a big concert hall, art gallery, children theater, and big foyers. But it took him 17 years to make this building. This is one of the first modern, or let's say contemporary architecture in Turkey, with, like the Germans say, it, forehang facade with a hanging facade from aluminium. 60s, we had to import many things from abroad. For example, this facade came from Germany, from Solingen, and but the machinery of the old theater and opera also. But then it was finished on 1968, and at the end, Istanbul had an opera and ballet house. But 1 year later, it burned down. Some people are saying it was a terrorist attack. Some people are saying it was a management issue. The burn started from the stage. It burned down all. And then, because of the responsibility reasons, and my father worked for the government, he was in the court. But he was very German. And he had all these papers, and he was a very technical person. And then they said he can renovate the building again. And this is after the fire. I remember I was a child. Then it took him again 7 years. It was a similar building, the same facade, but at this time the material was not imported, because the industry was better in Turkey, and this is, for example, Turkish aluminium. But the name changed, because before it was called Atatürk Kültür Saray, and then it changed to Atatürk Cultural Center. These are the big foyers. You are entering, it's marble floors, and then you have an aluminium staircase going up. And this is the main hall with 1,300 seats. You can see here, it's very well equipped. Of course, not digital like in these days, but it was one of the best opera houses many years in the world. But with the years, of course, a building is getting older, and the technologies are changing. And they decided in 2010 to renovate the building. But before starting of the renovation, the new because since 10 years we have a new regime, and the people and also the president didn't like the building, and I heard this from the culture ministerium at this time, and then suddenly said the culture minister, we want to knock it down and make a bigger center, because this is a very expensive place, Taksim. But then first time in Turkey, it was a big decision, and a building from the 60s was under heritage. So then it was possible to renovate the building. What was the main idea in the renovation? Of course, we want to keep the 60s feeling, the aluminium facade, etc. Technically, we had some earthquake problems, because we had in year 1999 an earthquake. We had new rules. We had to strengthen the building without changing the architecture. But the main problem in this building was people can go inside only when it was an opera and ballet or a concert. So it was not a real public building. As you can see in the new section, we said all these spaces, except the big halls, should be accessible 365 days. Also, there are places which are not used well. Looking at the Bosphorus can be turned to a little restaurant. It can be shops inside, and it can be many art functions in the. So this building can be used multifunctional. But the people, there is a union from some artists didn't like this idea. They said this is our building, it should be not a public building. Then there was a court case against our project and they cancelled. And then what we made, we said with all the parties together and we find, I call this a soft version, because for me was more important to keep the building, because otherwise if you don't renovate the building, they want to knock it down. Then we started the renovation work. But what happened was during the renovation work, I think 20 days ago, they stopped the renovation work from the ministerium. And maybe you can see that was a picture, I think 2 weeks ago. Also, many people from my office went till to the roof. It was at the end a real public space. We don't know yet what will happen in the next days. I hope it will be renovated. Maybe, as you know, yesterday they said the park will stay, so they cannot have a building there. It's a good hope also for this building. This is from the inside. As you can see, everything is taken already out and waiting for renovation. That was the last picture. After the demonstrations, they took over the Taksim Square. Suddenly the Turkish flag and Atatürk came. So in 2 days, everything was changed. So we are waiting what will happen. This is something, of course, very nostalgic for me, this building. This is another project in the heart of Istanbul, also on the harbor of Istanbul. This is year 2000. We made a master plan for the new harbor of Istanbul. Many years ago, in the Ottoman time, it was also a harbor, but international harbor. I guess this is the Italian ambassador came with his ship, and he was directly on the city. But in these days, when these big cruisers are coming, the ports are changed. They are like the airports, so you have big security issues, so you cannot come to the seaside. This is also next to the port. From this picture, only the clock tower is existing, and the mosque behind all these military are knocked down. And on the 60s, they made, because this is a port, they made entrepôts here. These are 4 in the front and 3 entrepôts on the back side. What we made, we kept the main structure of the entrepôts and we turned them to new functions like art galleries, shops, some little residences, hotels, and it was a mixed-use project. But the main idea was to open this part, which is still closed to Istanbul, so it's a part of the public spaces, and then you can walk on the water or you can be next to the water. But this master plan in year 2000, after we made the master plan, it was a big tender, but it was many corruptions in the tender and they cancelled it. And the only project, the baby, I call it, came out is the Istanbul Modern, which is the first contemporary art museum in Istanbul. We took one of these entrepôts, which was also in the master plan as a museum, and kept the main structure. We just gave a new gray color on the facades, very simple, and then that was the inside. Of course, because of the new rules of the earthquake, we had to strengthen the building. And then we came to the idea to have just two colors, gray and white, that the pictures and statues which are coming here, coming more out. And the square here was used in year 2005 for 5,000 people when there was a congress for architects, first time in Istanbul. That was also a part of the master plan. So another part of Istanbul which is very important, again starting from year 2000, is the boulevard on the north. We can say this is the third part of the new city, and but the story starting from the 60s, where President Menderes said he will make a new boulevard starting from the seaside, from Beşiktaş till to the north. Of course, it's going up a big ramp and then coming to the main boulevard, where we had many years old factories. Here we can see the boulevard going up. These are pictures from the 60s. And then in the 80s, they said there will be new mixed-use developments around this boulevard. And this is the first project we did. That was in year 2000-2002. Because the client wanted, at this time I was a young architect, young praxis, he said we have to negotiate or we have to come together with some international architects. We had to work with Geordie Partnership from Los Angeles to make a new mixed-use project. The main idea was, here we can see the boulevard again, and there is a parallel, there is another street, and we said we are making an open, let's say, shopping area, starting from the boulevard as a square, and going through the complex, and then reaching in -8 level the other street. So the people are walking through this building, and then there is a metro line also, and from these neighborhoods every day 5,000 people passing through this building. So that was the starting point. The other point was we have 3 different functions, like entertainment and retail, residential units and offices. Normally in buildings like this they are very separated in boxes, but we wanted to have visual connections between these 3 functions. When you are in the office, you can see on the right there are cinemas, the entertainment block, then you can see the terraces of the retail, also the terraces of the housing. I think shopping centers are getting more and more boring, and when they became places where people are meeting, then it's much nicer. This is the heart of the center, and this is reacting then as an amphitheater, then you can have concerts with many people, so this place is changing then to a theater or to a concert hall. Or that was during the demonstrations in 20 days ago, or to a place where people can demonstrate. At this time, I think there was a Starbucks and another change which many people doesn't like, so they demonstrate against them. Next to this canyon project, there was an existing building. You can see here a very long building. It was, I think, made on 80s as a depot or office, but then it stays like this many years, and it's, I think, 12 meter to 200 meter. And the client didn't know what to do with this building. And we said, we are keeping the main structure, and we are making small loft units inside. We put the glass boxes in different modules, and they are units which are like a hotel room, small apartments, or a little bit bigger, also home offices. And now there are about 150 people, apartments, and 150 families living here. But these are not real families, these are small families, or people, they are coming from abroad, or people, they are single here, and for example, 5 architects have their small offices here, so it's a mix. And in the entrance there is also a restaurant. Here we can see the modules again. When you enter the building, on the left side there is an Italian restaurant. And sometimes, you can see here, we keep the main concrete parts of the building, and we put new elements inside. Sometimes they are double floor also. And here you can see on the plans, like a Lego, they are playing. In every plan is a different units. So every floor is different, and that makes the difference also on the facade. This building was very successful for the client. He sold 150 apartments maybe in a half a year, and then he decided to buy the land next to it, which was behind, which was not on the boulevard. And then we said we make a taller tower on the back side, little bit different. With an idea to have big terraces, because we like also to sit on the terrace. And if these terraces are hidden from the wind and sun, like here, then this is a part of your living room, and you can smoke there, or all the year you can use this part. And that was the main idea, because typically all these towers, they are just glass tower, they don't have balconies and terraces. This is the third building I want to show you, also in the same boulevard. That was a different client. He came with a different brief. He said, I want to make the highest tower in Turkey. Sometimes for architect it's good to make something higher, but it's very difficult. Also, first of all, technically you have to work with the engineers, and when it's an earthquake country, so there are many problems to make it higher. And when this building is not a typical square building, or the cores are not in the middle, like here on the north and south, then it's more difficult. So we made maybe 100 tests that we negotiated with the engineers. The second thing was, because it's a residential building, we said how you can be in 200 meter and still you can open your window or your glass door to your terrace. And then we worked with a German engineer. We made a very simple model. This model, this is a smoke test. And then we said typically a building tower is ending on the end, so you don't have these terraces. But if you have a terrace in 200 meters, because it's so windy and cold, you cannot be outside. We said we are making a secondary shell. This is not something new. Foster Mates is also many years ago in Frankfurt, but it was an office building. We tried this also in an apartment building where there are residences. And when you are there, you have a feeling you are in a row house with 3 floors. And as you can see, this is natural ventilated. So you can see there 365 days, and it's working also when it was finished. And you can have your own garden. This is the back side. You have a similar place like this also. Here you can see the openings on the floor, and then there are openings on the ceilings. And this is the retail part, where there are restaurants on the ground floor of this building. But sometimes in Istanbul it's also like this. This is another important project in Istanbul, because maybe, as you know, we have or still have, or they are finishing now, 2 train stations. Sirkeci is the ending point of the Europe trainway, and Haydarpaşa, which is on the Asian side, is the end point of the Asian railways. But the government decided to make a new train line under the Bosphorus, which will be finished in August. And like in Europe, many stations, so we need a new station, and these old stations will be, I hope they will stay also with some trains which are local. People are talking now about this. But because of the new railway, we need a new transfer point, which is called Yeni Kapı. Yeni Kapı means the new door. It's next to the old city of Istanbul. And there was an invited competition, international invited competition, and we make this project for this. When they started to digging the land, they found the oldest harbor of Istanbul. It means in the same time we had to deal with the archaeological project. This is again the old part of Istanbul. Istanbul, you can see the walls around, and this is in the old part of the Istanbul. And in front of this project, it's also a new harbor for these ships which are moving very fast, so you can go to direction of Bursa or Marmara Sea with all these ships. That means all many layers of trains, ships, and also traffic, car traffic are coming here together. Our main ideas was, we said this should be a big park, and underneath were coming all the tunnels, and this is how is it now, and that was our proposal. We started because the archaeologists like this geometry, how they are working. That was our starting point. And these roofs are like they are reflecting it's forming like flying carpets, and underneath are the stations, retail, and then we have terraces underneath these roofs looking to the Marmara Sea. Here we can see these layers. Another part of our praxis deals with media centers. Media is very important in Turkey. It was a big boom when they said we want to sell more newspapers, daily newspapers. And what they had to do, they had made big campaigns. So they suddenly, you saw on the newspapers, they are giving, for 100 coupons, you can have a refrigerator or a TV set or an encyclopedia. And through that, for example, a newspaper became, instead of 100,000 press one day, 1 million. So that's why they needed then new, bigger factories, printing plants. Normally, 50s, 60s, when I was a child going to the school, Babali was the place where we had all the newspaper buildings with a small machine without any storage of the paper. But they had to move, they worked in these buildings with these machines. But after this big booming in the media, they had to move to places which are next to the highways. That was the first building that I made, and the last building from my father we designed together. First time, maybe 1,000 people in workstations worked in this open space office. That was the immediate headquarters, and behind us you can see the printing plant. They needed, of course, other factories in the Asian part. That was the factory in Ankara, on the way from Ankara airport to the city. Also, they started to buy magazines, and they needed new buildings for them. These are the offices. And then the same people, because TV was then more trendy than a newspaper, then they started to have TV channels. And then we changed the printing plant, which we made 10 years ago, to a TV studios. And the printing plant moved to another place. This is another printing plant in Izmir. But at the end, this is the last building we made for them in Ankara. They needed a smaller building next to the politicians, next to the heart. For example, the Social Democrats, they are building on the behind. And this is a new boulevard in Ankara. And they wanted, I call it like the embassy of this media group. This is a cube 30 meter by 30 by 30 meter high, and because there are different groups, we said in this cube there are smaller cubes which are representing the other or different firms in the same concept. Then we decided to make different levels, different plates. As you can see, they are playing around this asymmetrical core. And this is the outside facade. Has 2 layers, so you can go out to a terrace and have fresh air. And as you can see in the section, there are different levels in this same building. And through that, in the facade, you can see these different volumes. Where transparent is more common spaces, and where these groups are where different groups are working. This is the place between outside and inside. Sorry. Sometimes it's like this. It depends from the north, south, and west and east. This is the main entrance. This is the top lounge where they are meeting all the politicians and making sometimes TV interviews. This is in the night. This is the entrance. There is also a coffee house there. This is more a meeting point than, let's say, an office, more a social place. After that, in a very strange country, maybe you know, Kazakhstan, they wanted from us a media building. And normally, media, the TV channels are belonging directly to the government. And this is the new city of Astana, designed by architect Rupava. There are buildings, many buildings from Foster. Also here we made a stadium, I will show you next. But there is, they wanted a media center. Between a park and a boulevard was the place. Normally, all the buildings around are towers with blue or gold glazed buildings, facades. We said we should make a transparent tower. It's still government and it's Nazarbayev TVs, but we said it should be as transparent as possible. And that should be more a public building. So you can see the main entrance. Normally you can walk through this building to the park, or from the park to this building, and all the TV studios are in that street. And on the right hand there is a concert hall for different concerts. This is the main entrance. This is the where the tower is starting, and on the left where we have the colors. Every color is representing a studio. The studios are in different levels. This is the passage that you can walk. It's a part of the public space in Astana. Bodrum is very important for me because when I was a child, I was there. And many years it was like my second house. And 10 years ago, we won a competition for Bodrum Airport. And at this time, for Turkey, they want to make new airport buildings in Ankara, Istanbul, Izmir, Dalaman, and Antalya. And we won the Bodrum Airport. Bodrum was many years ago like this. Of course, it changed. This is the place where I live. We like shadow, we like these like bamboos, these roofs. But at the end, airports are big machines, and they are dictated from airplane sizes. And in these days, most of the airports are linear. Also, we designed a linear airport. They wanted from us 5 million passenger capacity, and also 8 airplanes can come to the bridge. That was 10 years ago when we made the competition, but nobody was able, or there was no budget to make this airport many years. And then, I think 1 year ago, they decided to make this, and it's then very difficult for an architect to use a project that you made 10 years ago, and because it's a tender, it's a governmental building, so you cannot change the message because of the tender rules. So what we made, we kept the main idea, but we worked with engineers how we can make this building more or less columns, like the main hall, departure hall, or we research materials, because the airport where the airplanes are coming is the north face. We can, it was able to make a very transparent facade, glass facade. So, and this is the entrance. And at the back side, on the south side, we have a big stone box. If you remember the terrace I showed you, I want to have a similar feeling. Of course, it's a new technique. It's made from aluminium, these ceilings. And on the floor, we have a stone which was a stone from 60 kilometers away. We find a quarry. This is the departure level. And when you are in the building, you have through this transparent glass, you can see all the mountains. So you are together with them. And when you are entering, you have all these banana trees. And then through the bridges, you are coming to this transparent building. Here it's again from outside to the inside. So when you are inside, you feel the outside. From outside, you feel the inside. That was our vision. And from very far, you can read the building just as a line. Again, back to Astana. We worked there with Norman Foster together to make an opera house. After that, they wanted from us that we will make a stadium. But normally, not many people in Kazakhstan are playing football. And it's in winter very cold. It can be minus 40 with wind minus 50. In summer it gets plus 40. So it's 80 degrees. And then we said, why we are not making a stadium that we can close the roof. So there are some samples in Germany, in the States. But our form was very difficult to make a roof. But then we work with engineers. As you can see, you can feel here not the roof. And this is the outside, the entrance. And because it's very cold there, we said we are making a secondary shell. They should be also somehow transparent to give natural light to the foyers, to the entrances. And here this is the... And this stadium can be used also for different functions. When they are not playing football, they can have a circus, and they have different concerts, because when you close the roof, it's then multi-use. After the stadium, we made an invited competition in Krasnodar. Because Krasnodar was one of the candidates for the European Football Champion League. Here the main idea, how we can, because there is a big master plan with hotels, residential around, a little bit outside of the city. We said stadiums are always empty when there is no football, or when there is no happening. And then we said we will make an arcades around the stadium. As you can see here, these green strips. So the people can use these areas also when there is no football. And it's a big park. And underneath these green hills, you have then some retail facilities. This is the third stadium project we made last year. Maybe, as you know, Tokyo, Madrid and Istanbul are candidates for 2020. Tokyo declared with the architect Doğando they want to make the biggest and the best stadium in the world with 80,000 people. And Doğando, Norman Foster and Rogers was in the jury. We came with the idea to have a, like if you have a green and then the water drop is coming, we said how we can make a very light bubble, and that was able to make with carbon fiber. With this project, we get the finalists. But then they opened the names, and then it was, I think, 11 finalists, and one of them is Zahadit, and of course she won. We had no chance. Here we have a similar idea with arcades around the stadium. And here you can see the bubble, because of its carbon fiber, it's very light. And so the structure is very, very thin. This is around the stadium. It's also green spaces. And I think I have two other projects which are outside of Turkey again. One is a project we made before Gaddafi died in Tripoli. This is a Congress Center in Libya, Tripoli. Normally Tripoli is without trees, and very beige and very dusty. This is the only part next to the city, and they wanted here from many architects. It was before the revolution, and only one hotel in this convention center happened, and we made the convention center. We looked first in the park where there are no trees, because at the end a convention center is a big box. Then we started how we can relate with the park. And we said we should have an outside shell or some arcades around our box, which is a glass box. And this shell is protecting against sun, and also sometimes there are sunstorms also. And you can walk in these arcades. Here we can see again. The outside is made from a bronze mesh. For us was also important that we can see through this mesh. So it's not a real covering. So it's also from inside. You should have still the feeling. This is, for example, the south facade, so it's protecting against the sun, but you are still with the outside and inside. Normally, all these convention centers has these ugly banners, and we said we are making a media mesh, which is connected to a laptop, and then you can use, and also with artists you can make different displays. One of the African leaders, like Gaddafi, is also an older man. He wanted a similar building in Equatorial New Guinea, which is 3 degrees, again in Africa, but more south again. And normally Equatorial New Guinea is more on the south, but Malabo, the capital, is a little bit more northern. And they wanted a similar convention center there. This is the island, and in front of a building is a very nice sea, and they have these nice trees. Everything had to be important with airports, so it should be prefabricated because of time. We had to finish this building in 6 months. The first parts came by ships, and then with airplanes in these containers. And the main idea was, again, like in Tripoli, we had an outside cover, a mesh. At this time it was 3-dimensional. It was laser cutted everything in Turkish factories and transported in these containers. It's different pieces, but similar modules around the shell. Sometimes they are getting very dense. Here we can see more details. This is more the south facade, so it's more. And inside, this is the main lobby. And when you are in the lobby, still you can see outside to the water. And we worked with many people in 6 months' time, with architects, engineers, and 450 workers, and then at the end we finished the building. Thank you very much.
Mensen kennen het puutje.
Hello, my name is Verona. I'm doing my studies in Cyprus, and I'm so honored to be hearing your speech. And it's more interesting for me because I've been to most of the places you have explained to us in Istanbul, and I didn't know the designer, so I feel so happy to know that. And I would like to know about Atatürk Culture Center. I heard the story what has been going on these days in Atatürk, the news, and I would like to know if they wanted to change the function or the function was the same, like culture center.
Normally, because as I said, it's a building under heritage, if they will not change this rule, which can happen in our countries. But I think after Gezi Park, we have a new word now in Turkey. I hope it will not change, and we will keep the same functions. It will be just a building with more digital technology, but it will look like in the 60s.
Thank you so much. And I have another question about the canyon. I would like to know if, because we know Istanbul is kind of windy, and I've experienced it while I've been there, and I've seen some extra glass facade, and I saw that the wind was coming like so fast somehow, and I would like to know if those glass facades were added extra or they have been from the beginning.
No. If you make a building, as I explained, this is not a real Tabanlioglu building. It's a mixture of Jordi and us. I was much younger. When I was, now maybe I changed this building. And when you make an open building, you have always the problems with the wind. And plus, when you make forms like this, they are adding. And of course, we went to a wind tunnel test in London because we had good engineers from Arup, from England. But when we went to the test, normally after the test, they have to say you red points, like some parts are not good for comfort. But I think the test was not a good test because we made the same test again after we finished the building, and we looked some solutions. We found different solutions like these glass facades, but then we decided with the client to keep the building like it is, because if, for example, we close the roof, so all the building will be changed. If we make new additional architectural elements, we tried with some tents and etc. So the feeling is changing. So it will stay like a wind, and for many people, sometimes some people doesn't like the building because it's windy, but more people like it. So it's, I don't know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. A really nice project, which really I appreciate as a young architect. Also, as well, I've been experiencing the Canyon building. I've been doing my studies in mixed-use projects, and I wanted to ask if there is any inspiration that you have got from another project as Canyon is, or I read wrong. Do you understand my point?
Yeah, like I said, we made this word journey together, and Journey made a similar project in Japan, Fukuoka. We went together with them. It's also an open center like this, but with different feelings. So I want to adapt this more to Istanbul. So that was, let's say, the starting point. But as you saw maybe in the Google plan, these curves are has a meaning. So from the boulevard to the other streets, there is a level differences, and so it's a part of the city. So it's not a closed concept there.
Another question, if it's possible. The stadium you've done in Tokyo, you used a shell structure. What kind of material can you use for such a large span to make it, and to use such a thin shell to make such a large span?
This is a new material. It's not used so much in bigger buildings. It's a carbon fiber. I worked with Hanif Kara. He's in London, one of the best engineers in the world. And we came to the idea to have the structure as thin as possible. You must have a very lightweight structure, and that will be carbon fiber. So it will be, because it was just a competition. So that was just a project.
Okay,
but that was our idea.
Okay, and shortly, just one more. I heard that you are a part of RIBA. So how you can get part of it?
Cool.
You gotta come. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you were part of the
No, because I was educated in Vienna. In Vienna is in the EU, so they said I can be chartered member in RIBA.
Okay, so I misunderstood the point. Thank you so much, sorry.
Peki,
My name is Zilir Cenov. I'm an architect who is working in the practice of an academy. It is obvious that Turkish architecture has been made a great move since 2000. So we have seen architects from Turkey coming to international scene as very successful architects. I'd like to know whether it is the technology and the progressing construction industry in Turkey one of the reasons, and whether the politics of openness, Mr. President, Prime Minister in Turkey, the reasons why this not only buildings in Turkey, but also buildings from Turkish architects outside Turkey. The reason of this progress.
I think it started already in the 80s with Özal. He was the first president who opened Turkey to abroad, and he said we need new private because till 80s I remember my father's time. He made two buildings, the National at this time, old airport and the Opera House. And then he made the Galleria complex. That was his last project. But when I came back to Vienna, it was new investments. But because Turkey is not in the EU, we cannot make competitions in the EU. So we need local partners. That's why the construction firms are more in Kazakhstan. I made also a hotel renovation in Dubrovnik called Libertas, maybe you know this. These are all projects which are designed and built. So I'm not alone. I'm strong with a construction firm. I think this is the only way that I can make these buildings in Africa or in Tripoli or in Kazakhstan. I think this is a new model in the world, but what is good is first these people are selecting the design, and then you are together with the construction firm.
Good evening, Violta Blana, Gazer, London. As you have probably noticed in Kosovo, right now I'm not too sure if this is your first time in Pristina. You have probably noticed that Kosovo is right now struggling a little bit to find its identity. And I'm sure this is something that all these young architects are aspiring to. So, and you probably know that Turkey is more and more present, not just in Kosovo, but in other countries in Balkan. I think history is repeating itself a little. So my question to you is, hypothetically speaking, if you were to if you were commissioned for a project in Kosovo, would you what kind of stamp would you put to that project? And have you ever thought about it?
When I was last year in Police University in Tirana to give a lecture, I had I have similar feelings, similar questions also, and because normally your politicians want more names from international companies, and so you are inviting Big or Foster or Zahid, so because they are brands, you know, and that's also normal. So you want, if you say to me also, when Zahid is making a mosque here, then many people will come. But I think you should do this. Also in Istanbul we have similar ideas. But I think there are, as you said, many other also urbanistic problems with the city planning and other things. There are many architects, also young architects in Turkey, which will be interested. And I think there are many people. I spoke before the lecture also with some young architects, educated in Orthodox Middle East University, in Istanbul universities, and that can be a good relation. And because when I'm here, some words are similar, so when we are talking, you have some Turkish, there are many relations. It's not small, we have big relations, and it's very near, and I think we can be helpful to each other. We made also many mistakes. When you go to Istanbul, you can see we have Toki, maybe you know Toki. Toki was from ministerial, from the government. They made many millions of square meters of mistakes. You should not do it. So you can learn from us, I think, very much, because we are very similar.
One last question.
Hello, my name is Arzen Bere. This is my first year of attending architecture. I'm very honored to be here in your presence because of your achievements. It's kind of my honor. I have a question, a general question for you. What do you think about Pristina in the general sense?
I saw very little, but maybe I will come again. What I saw is we have also. It reminds me from small cities in Turkey. When I walk through, it's a similar scale and similar problems on the streets. I think there are infrastructure problems. These are the first thing. But there are also little scale old buildings. But the renovations are not very nice. Like in our country, we just painted also the buildings, the old buildings. So you have to be careful about this. And because I think when you go to Venice and Florence, you can feel the people are living with these old buildings. We should like them, and they don't make them chocolate cakes.
Well, thank you very much for everything. Shall I leave it on this?